Hi, and welcome back to Positive Light. I am your host, Joni Lane, and Positive Light is on every Monday at 3 o'clock Pacific Daylight Time. And I say that because people from all over the world watch this show, and I like to make sure that you know when we're on. Thank you to LCM TV for having us. And if you go to lcm-tv.com, you can find us in our archives, and you can find the other archive shows that are on LCM TV. I have a meditation center in Kelseyville, California, which is in Northern California. And it's about 2 hours north of San Francisco. And we hold meditation classes, personal growth classes, Qigong classes. And if you visit our website, apositivelight.com, you can find our calendar page, which reflects all of our classes that we currently have and classes that will be scheduled as well. I also have a page on that website specifically for this radio show, which has all of our shows archived on that. So you can watch some of our past shows, or if you want to watch this show repeated or another show repeated, it's there and it's not going away. It's going to stay there. So throughout today's show, we will be putting up a graphic on how to contact me. But just to let you know, Joni, Joanie, at apositivelight.com. And our phone number will also be coming up. Feel free to contact me with any questions or suggestions if you want to have any more information about a class. Also, if you'd like to advertise, we are looking for sponsors. And you need the advertisement, and we need the sponsors. So we can keep the prices as low as $40 a month for some really good advertisement worldwide. So think about that, and I'm open to talking about how you'd like to structure your commercial. Next week, we will have Helen Turley and her partner Norb Yates on. They've both been on the show prior to next week, but together next week they'll both be on. And they will be talking about their upcoming class on June 1st, which involves the 5 Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz, and it also incorporates Enneagrams, which is a numbering system on how to know yourself better. It's a really fascinating class, and I encourage you to tune in next week so you can find out more about it, and maybe you'd like to join the class as well on June 1st. Today we have as our guest Eugenie Steinman, who has a radio show on the local station, KPFC 88.1 FM. And thank you for being here with us today.
Oh, you're very welcome. It's a pleasure to be in your studio.
Yeah, we're really happy to have you. And
Thank you.
Eugenie currently has a show on the radio called Radio Jail. Maybe you can tell us a little bit about that and what that's all about.
I'd love to. It was a little over a year ago. My cousin told me that she had heard on the radio that there was a show like that, a little different, with a different name. I think it's called The Jail Show or something like that. The Prison Show, that's what it is.
Mm-hmm.
And where people call in and can talk to their friends and family that are in prison. Well, I thought about it. I was working for KPFC doing interview shows. Oh, I had about it averaged out to maybe 2 a month. And I was very happy doing those shows. But when I heard about this, it just kind of clicked. And I said, I can do this. I will be able to do this kind of thing. And it's really a unique show. There's only one more, the one I spoke about. That's called Prison Radio, and that's in Texas. That's the only one. There's none in any jail. There's none in any other prison. Just that one and ours. So you can imagine, I had to convince, first of all, our radio person, Andy Weiss, who's head of KPFC, and he's a wonderful guy. And without much convincing, he went right along with it. What we did is we streamed the one in Texas, so we were able to hear it. And the two of us, after we heard it, we thought it would, with a few changes, a few things that we weren't crazy about the prison one, but it didn't turn out to be like that for our particular show. So then I had to talk to the sheriff. Well, that was a whole different deal. At that time, it was Sheriff Rivero. Well, I gave him a printout. Somehow I was able to scrounge out an article that had been written about that particular prison radio show. And he read that. And then I gave him a whole list of things called My Dream. And my dream was to totally change the jail. And the things he kept saying to me were, "It's a jail, Eugenie." And all I said was, "I understand." Because one thing I've learned, agreement is very, very powerful. So, and there's so much to agree with. You might think it's adversarial, but you'd be surprised. There's always some kind of common ground that you can find. And with that, oh, and then I had a friend who was recently let out of jail with an ankle, what do they call them, an ankle bracelet or something, so that she could never take it off. And she's had it on now for over a year. But anyway, she'd been in jail, and I said, how about if you get on my show, meaning Sheriff Rivero, with my friend Joyce, and you guys talk about the jail. And he was yes, and she, of course, was yes. Well, they had a great show. They found common ground, and the common ground they found was the lack of funds because of the realignment that was going on, where prison people were being let out of prisons. But when I read the article about that happening, I thought, oh, they were going home. No, they were being reassigned to local jails. So there wasn't very much funds for things that my friend who was on the phone and the sheriff could agree on. So they had common ground. It was lack of funding. They couldn't make, things better. They block, all these things that require funding. So it was a really good show. And when he left, he said, I can't believe that woman was in jail because she's so well spoken and so intelligent, and they had such a good conversation.
Now, isn't that the myth, though? That people just automatically assume that people in jail are uneducated and not well spoken.
That's true.
And it's funny that someone would just imagine that.
Right.
Just jump to that conclusion.
Absolutely.
And everybody from all different walks of life.
Absolutely.
I mean, there's no type of person that goes to jail. We all make mistakes, and sometimes we get caught making a mistake, and sometimes we make a big mistake that we have to pay for. But it doesn't have any reflection on our education or lack thereof. So
exactly.
I'm happy to hear that was brought to his attention.
Yes. Oh,
Yeah.
yes. So anyway, and he was very intelligent. I must say about Sheriff Rivero, his vocabulary is amazing. He has a great scope of what's going on. I mean, I understand he did things that are very objectionable, but as far as my relationship with him, it was really good. In fact, my last comment to him was, thank you for being my friend, because I really meant it. And he was my friend because he got this program in the jail.
No, so
And
he's the one that started this in
He
the jail.
started it,
Yeah.
and
Okay.
I would call him constantly, are the radios in yet? Are the radios in yet? And finally, and he was really busy. And finally he said, I promise you, Eugenie, I will get it done. And he did. So during his administration, it started, and there were nights when we would get 35, 40 phone calls. It's gone down a lot now because of Proposition 47, which is where a lot of people who were in for felonies were released on misdemeanors. So the population's gone down a bit, but we're still getting quite a few phone calls. And the phone calls, they are so beautiful. Children will call and sing happy birthday to their dads, their moms. Sometimes a father and mother are both in jail, and the grandmother will call up and put the child on to talk to their parents. And it's a service. It's really a great service, and it's free. Of course, it's shout outs. It's a one-way conversation, but it's so successful. And a lot of my calls are people who are just calling up to thank me for doing it. And of course, Sheriff Martin and Andy Weiss of the radio station are the ones that really should be thanked because they're doing it. They're making it happen. Oh, and then when I met Sheriff Martin, I thought, uh-oh, this is going to be hard. And I said, there's a correlation between recidivism, which means getting out and going back, and family ties. And I said, this increases family ties. This is me talking to Sheriff Martin because he wanted to meet with me. So I got there, and the first thing he said was, I said, oh, it's really good for families. And he said, well, I don't really care about families. And I said, I couldn't say anything. I just didn't know what to say. And I thought, well, that's the end of this, I guess. And when we left, and I sent him all kinds of material, emailed him how family relationships do cut down on recidivism. And I did everything he asked me to do. I arranged meetings with him and the lieutenants and myself and brought him materials. Whatever he asked for, I did. Well, I didn't know if he was going to accept it or not. And he had been on, the program was still going on, but it was the very beginning of his administration. Well, one day he was on a radio show with a friend of mine, Bill Conwell. I don't know if you know him. He's a great lawyer. And while he was on Bill's show, Bill said, is there anything about the previous administration that you like, that you want to continue? The first thing he said were the uniforms. I really like the uniforms. And the second thing he said was radio jail.
Oh, wow.
And I started
Nice.
dancing all over the living room. He said, I wasn't really for it at first, but after I met Eugenie and I spoke to Andy and the lieutenants who had been running it, he decided to keep it going. So I'm so happy for that. And I just want to make sure I don't forget to tell everybody out there, if you have anyone in jail, the number to call is 263-3435 every Sunday from 6 to 7 p.m. And it's 88.1 FM. And we can also be streamed. It's, I think it's kgo.org is all you have to know. KPFZ.org,
Right.
excuse me.
And this is for Lake County, so that would be area code 707.
Right.
And
area
what was
code
that number
707,
again?
That's good to know. 707-263-3435. And may I plug for donations, if you'd like to become a member of KPFZ, for $100, you will get a Radio Jail t-shirt.
Now, I'd
Which-
love to have a radio jail
Oh, well,
t-shirt.
I'll bring you one. Now, what it is a black t-shirt with a radio in jail. Because the radios are in jail.
Right.
So that's what we
Right.
show, a radio in jail. So if you'd like a t-shirt, please just send a membership to, it's Radio Jail KPFZ 149 North Main Street. That's Lakeport, and it's 95453. So with a $100 donation, you will get, or membership, I should say, you will get a Radio Jail t-shirt.
That's a great thing. And also, if you didn't get that information, you can email me at some of the. I will have what am I trying to say? Well, I will have a graphic up on the screen where you can have my information, and I can get that information to you that Eugenie just told us about. So, Eugenie, also, I'd like to know, maybe you can tell us how this works a little bit. Do people have to line this up ahead of time to call in, or how does this work with the jail? How do they organize it?
Okay. Every Sunday, the radios are passed out. The inmates do not have radios generally, but Sunday at 6 o'clock, the radios are passed out. They tune in, and people call in. Sometimes, in fact, most of the time, they'll call in and they'll say, I want to shout out to, and there'll be 5 or 6 people that they're shouting out to. Well, when people hear their name on the radio, and they're in jail,
It
it's
reminds them they're
enormous.
not forgotten.
They're not forgotten,
Yeah.
and they're important. Their names on the
Right.
radio.
Right.
So it's a very, very cool thing for them.
Hmm.
And it's funny, a lot of people will stop me on the street and they have nobody in jail, but they love the show. And they say every Sunday, I just sit down, put on the radio at 6 o'clock, and I listen to Radio Jail because they find it such a good show.
Yeah. And I've done that myself, and it is an interesting show. I'm always interested in hearing the messages that people give their
Mhm.
friends and family. But there was a couple of times when I thought, and maybe I'm mistaken, when I thought I heard the inmates actually having a conversation with their family. Now, do they have a phone that's accessible to them, or maybe I was?
It's strictly one-sided. What you might have heard, though, a lot of people when they get out call in to talk
Oh,
to. So their ex inmates
right,
call in
to talk to their
to
friends.
talk to their friends. So you might have heard that, and it could sound that way
Mhm.
too, because that's another thing. There seems to be a real camaraderie in our particular jail, because they don't forget their friends when they get out. They want to call them. They say as soon as you get out, get in touch. So there's a kind of a beautiful friendship, I think, for some reason that's developing in our jail.
And that's important. Just because someone made a mistake doesn't mean that they're not a good, loving person that needs to have love and support.
Of
So
course.
this is a very important service that you've put together,
Well,
and
thank you.
I thank you for doing it. I think it's
Well,
very important.
It is. It's
Um,
very important.
Maybe we could talk about some of the issues surrounding our jail. Lake County Jail is different than other jails. We're lacking some funding, and we're having specific problems.
Well, I'm really not familiar with other jails. This is my only experience. I will say that there was overcrowding
Hmm.
because of the realignment situations, but I think because of Proposition 47 now, that it isn't so crowded. But let me just tell you some of the good things about our jail.
Okay.
First of all, there's a GED program. So if you go in and you don't have a high school diploma, you can come out with a high school diploma.
That's
It's
important.
amazing. It really is. They also have Narcotics Anonymous and Alcoholics Anonymous programs. They have another program. If you take this particular program, and I don't know for how long, maybe 6 weeks, your sentence will be reduced if you participate in that program. So that's another beneficial thing. And they just started a garden, big garden.
That's nice.
So yeah, they didn't have. Well, they had one once, and then they didn't, and now they do again. So and I've seen it, and I even brought some plants over, and it's huge. It really is.
Nice.
So the inmates will be getting fresh food, and they might even bring some to the farmers market. They were talking about that.
That's important. So they get nutrition, and they get to have something to do, and they're
Something to
learning more about farming, and
Exactly.
that's an important thing.
Exactly.
Having something to do with your hands, working in the earth, all good things.
Absolutely, and it's so it's stimulating emotionally, I think,
Mhm.
because you really get into the fact that you've created something.
Right.
In fact, I went there to do. Oh, that's another thing. They can get, they can read every single pod gets a roll-in library.
Mhm.
I don't know how often it is, but you can donate books. So anyone out there, if you feel like bringing books to the jail,
Nice.
I think they'll take. We brought a lot, but I think they're ready for more. So you can always call the jail and ask if they want books. And so many people have so many books that they don't know what to do with. You can bring them to the jail.
That's a really good suggestion. I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah.
I know that people like to pass the time reading books, and some people want to educate themselves too.
Right.
So I'm sure both types of books are welcome.
Exactly. And don't worry about whether they're suitable or not, because they go through every book. So you don't have. All you have to do is bring them in.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's good to know. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, you were talking earlier off camera a little bit about making people aware, particularly politicians and people, giving some representation to the inmates, saying that we need someone to stand up for them and give them a voice.
I feel congressional representation is a must. There are so many inmates in this country. We all know. I think are we second to China or did we beat China
Oh, I'm
now?
sure
I
we-
don't know,
I
but
think
it's
we beat
heavy
them.
duty and it's ridiculous. So with a population that size of Americans, I feel, and I think everybody should feel that they should have congressional representation. How we go about it, I have no idea.
Hmm.
Do we need to vote? Does it have to be a person who's in Congress already, or can a group come into Congress and say, we represent inmates? I don't know. But let's do some research and hopefully we can find out. I'm going to try, and maybe somebody out there will know something about it.
So, are you open to having someone contact you regarding that?
Oh, absolutely. And you can call me. I can give you my phone and my email address. Okay? My phone number is 707 274 8995. Or email me if you have any information about how we can go about doing that. And that's eugst@netscape.net.
That's an important thing. Educating people is one thing. Giving people options is another. When you're in jail and you're not educating yourself, or correctional facilities should be correcting behavior, or at least giving other options.
Mm-hmm.
If people aren't given some other avenues to pursue, they're really given no choice but to pursue the same avenue they know.
Right,
And
exactly.
if there's education in jails, opportunities to learn new things, and I think most jails do have that to
Uh-huh.
a certain degree. I know that our county here in Lake County is a little bit. We're one of the poorest counties in the state of California, which is very sad because the inmates are the ones that suffer, as well as many of the other low-income people around here. Um, Very important information, and I think that having some representation in Congress, giving these inmates a voice,
Exactly.
it's an important endeavor. And
Yes.
shows like this, having you on the show, enlightening people in this area is a really big step in that direction.
I want to point out one other thing that proves how poor the county is, as you were saying.
Hmm.
Um, my friend who I mentioned before, who has the ankle bracelet on her, in this county, that ankle bracelet costs her $400 a month. In
Whoa.
other counties, they don't charge. And I inquired, why does she have to do this? It's because we're so poor. Well, taking the money from the poor to the poor is just, it doesn't make sense. The girl makes, I think she said, $700 a month or something on Social Security or whatever. Of that, she has to spend $400 to keep herself out of jail. If
Yeah.
she doesn't pay it, she's back in jail.
So she's paying for her freedom
She's paying for her freedom.
out of her pocket,
Right.
which is taking money out of her household, which might give her the opportunity to, say, go to school or take an online class
Right.
or something.
Right.
But now she's limited on her funds even more so
Exactly.
if she's only making $700 a month.
That's so true.
These are stories that are happening every day.
And this is only, I don't know if there's any other county that does that, but we're one of the few that actually charges for the ankle bracelet.
That's an important thing to know.
Yes,
Um,
it is. I also want to talk about there's serious health problems with some of the inmates.
Mm.
It's very rare that they will get medical care for these problems.
Now, what do you mean by that
Well,
specifically?
There was somebody in there with kidney problems and bladder problems and all kinds of things wrong with him. He didn't get out because of that. I mean, that was not a reason enough to put him in the hospital for some reason. Finally, he did get out. This is such a crazy story. He got out and he went through all kinds of testing and everything. And what happened was every month he'd have to go back and give a urine sample. So when he went back, they said, "Oh, this is a dirty sample," meaning it had the addictive drugs in it that he shouldn't have had. And they said, "We're sorry, but we have to put you back in jail." He hadn't had his treatment, his medical care yet. Well, what happened was, and he got a nurse to finally say, I might be getting the story a little wrong, but basically what it was the dye that they put in his body to trace to see where his problems were acted as though it was an illegal drug when
Ah.
they tested him.
Ah.
So the whole thing, oh God. And he didn't get out right away either. He finally did, and now he's getting treatment. Everything's okay. But that's the kind of thing that goes on.
Now, don't they have a medical facility there at the
No,
jail?
no, no,
A
no.
nurse or
I
on-call
think
doctor?
a nurse comes in once in a while.
It's a joke.
There's a woman, yeah, exactly. I'm glad you know that because you've had experience. There's a woman calls us twice now. She's called us the grandmother of this boy, or I guess he's pretty young, and he has a broken hand, and they haven't fixed it.
How long has this happened? Like days ago?
This just yes, she called in last Sunday.
Mhm.
Again, that was her second call. And she was so upset because not only did he have a broken hand 2 weeks ago, but they didn't do anything. He still had a broken hand and he had handcuffs on. And the poor woman was just, you can imagine, if it's your grandson and you see this kind of,
Sure.
I could call it brutality, I
It
think.
is brutality. It's abuse, and there's no excuse for it. If
Right.
someone is hurt, no matter who they are and what you think of them, they
You
deserve to have
fix
medical
it.
treatment.
Absolutely.
And I think that's part of our human rights here in this country is medical.
I know, and I mean, I think it's, what is it? I think it's, I forget, in the Constitution, I forget the number, but it's amendment, I think it's 8 or 9, where it lists how prisoners should be treated and the rights they have.
Mhm.
And medical care, I'm sure, is part of it.
Oh, it is. It is
Yeah,
part of it. And
yeah.
it's just
And
basic
also-
humane treatment.
And no, just dehumanization.
Mhm.
Well, that does, I mean, going into a jail is totally dehumanizing from the beginning to the end. People are treated so poorly, so rudely, because they're there. Then rudeness is a justification to treat them rudely all the time. You're justified. Why?
Mhm.
Because they're in jail.
Right.
So this is so counterproductive to correctional. It's the opposite of correctional.
Yeah. And
really.
you come out with such low self-esteem and your self-worth is basically been
Exactly.
destroyed because nobody's treated you as if you're worth anything.
So true. That is
So,
so
how
true.
can you change your life when that's the way
when
you're
you're
treated?
so down,
Yeah.
right?
It's-
And then that's another program with depression in jail. Even though they do give quite a few programs, and I'm really proud of them for doing that, and the garden, I'm so proud of them for doing that. But these people are so depressed. It's so hard for them to even get out of the cell that they're in and go to somewhere else where they could participate.
Mhm.
And the inmates who have participated are so encouraging to say, "Hey, come on! You can get out of your cell. You go to a place. You can talk to other people. You can't talk to each other in jail. By the way,
Well, and
It's-
that's another great thing about this radio show is that you can have people that were in jail talking people that are in jail
Right.
and encouraging them to continue to do these things. Get
Exactly.
up and go out
And they
in
do.
the garden.
That's just
and-
what they do. You're absolutely right. That's exactly what they do. Don't worry, you'll get out and come and see me, and we'll do it together. And
Mm-hmm.
it is. You're so right. It's so encouraging when they hear from people who have been in jail.
Right.
So it is a great program for so many reasons, and I feel like we really accomplished something by getting it on the radio, and we're the only ones in the entire country that
Yeah.
have this show in a
It's-
jail.
That's great. And maybe this show will hopefully encourage others to do something in their community to.
Well, that's my goal. My goal is to have this in every jail and every prison. There's no reason not to.
Mhm.
It's free. They complain we need a government grant for this and that. Not for this though. As good as it is, as healthy as it is, it's free.
Right.
So why shouldn't everybody, every inmate, have access to something like this?
Right.
So if you're out there and you have any ideas about that, please contact me at at netscape.net.
Okay, and if you didn't get that, feel free to contact me and I can give that information to you, either email or by phone. My
Great.
contact information will be flashing up as well. We're going to take a break right now. Thank you, Eugenie, for letting us know about this wonderful program, giving
It's
us
my pleasure.
ideas on maybe getting other people to do the same thing. It
I
sounds like a
hope
very
so.
positive
I hope
thing.
so.
So we're going to take a commercial break. We'll be back in a few minutes. And Eugenie's going to give us a little history on local Native Americans and the Thule dolls that they had. So we'll go into that when we get back. Thank you for joining us.
You are invited to participate in a true multimedia experience coming to a home near you. LCM TV is bringing Lake County into the new millennium with news, live broadcast, information, music, talk shows, and local programming, all streaming in high definition online and soon to be on your Roku box. Join us at lcm-tv.com or be a part of our studio audience. You can also watch the shows at lakecomagazine.com as we provide programming to inform, enlighten, and maybe even enrage you. On Lake County Magazine Talk Show with Terry and Pete the Tax Guy, Wednesday mornings at 9 a.m. Like racing? Try the Checkered Flag Show, hosted by Ace Naylor on Tuesdays at 7 p.m. All ages and divisions in regional and national fields. Joni Lane brings a positive light to you every Monday at 3 p.m. Pasha Space brings an international flair as they discuss ecological, health, and social issues in Haiti with people around the world. End up your week with positive, conscious sounds on Saturday at 9 a.m. with Sister T on the Bridge. This show is also simulcast on KMEC 105.1 FM in Ukiah. Our latest show, LCM TV News, is brought to you live Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays at noon, and rebroadcast at 6:30 p.m. and noon daily, Tuesday, Saturday, and Sunday, featuring national, regional, and local news, weather, and sports. We have it all here for you on your local TV station, LCM TV. Join us online and soon on Roku, giving you access to all the best Lake County has to offer. We are LCMTV.com, your multimedia connection. Tune in for the fun. It's live TV at its best.
Welcome back. This is Joni Lane. I'm your host for A Positive Light. Positive Light is on every Monday at 3 o'clock Pacific Daylight Time, and thank you for joining us. Today we have Eugenie Steinman on as our guest.
Joni, is your mic back on?
No, it wasn't on.
There we go.
So since my mic wasn't on and now it is, I'm going to start over. Welcome back. I'm your host, Joni Lane, and this is our show, A Positive Light. We are on every Monday at 3 o'clock Pacific Time. And today we have Eugenie Steinman on as our guest. And Eugenie was telling us about a show that she has on the radio called Radio Jail, where people can call in and communicate messages to inmates. It's a fascinating idea, and I think that more people should do it. So I'm encouraging that before we move on to our next segment, where Eugenie's going to give us a demonstration on Thule dolls, give us a little bit of history about the Native Americans in the local area. The Pomo Indians are our Native Americans that are local here. We'll also be showing some pictures up on our screen, which she will give a brief description of. So, Eugenie, thanks for being on the show today.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome, and you're just a wealth of knowledge. All this information giving us, we really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Let's look at a couple of pictures. Maybe you can describe what they are and tell us
Yes,
a little
of
bit about the
course,
history behind
yes.
them.
Well, yes, I'd be happy to. I just want to explain a little bit about my background that led to this. When I first of all, I come from Brooklyn, New York. So
Never would have guessed
So
it.
this is kind of far afield, from anything I ever learned in New York to build Thule houses. But when I did move here to Lake County, I just became fascinated by the plants, the natural plants, the indigenous plants. And I'd ask everybody, what's this good for? What's that good for? I had a lot of information. And I started making wreaths and baskets, and I started doing classes at the museum and at the Arts Council, teaching people about how to make wreaths and baskets, which somehow I picked up because I was so fascinated by what they did with plants.
Mm-hmm. Now here's a photo over here.
Now, there's a photo. This is Well, so the plants led to a job with the Bureau of Indian Affairs, an actual paying, well-paying job, where I could build original Thule houses with the children in all the schools. Now, this is at Pomo Elementary School. We built these Thule houses. When I first came to California, like many other people, I felt that how in Native American homes would be teepees. But of course, teepees are where there's buffalo skin. Here, there's Thule. So here they build their houses out of Thule.
So these are replicas of the original houses that the Native Americans in the local area made out of the Thule plants.
Exactly. So we had to gather loads and loads of Thule to make these. It took tremendous carloads of Thule.
I'm sure it did.
And here I am. Here is the Indian reservation. One summer I worked just at an Indian reservation, and this is one of the little Pomo girls. She had gathered this Thule and was holding it up, and she's got a little clipper in her hand, and we were going to use it. And if you show another picture, I think it'll show the Thule. First of all, there's a long, long rope from tree. See,
Yeah.
the rope, and all the Thule is hung on the rope, then carried over to the frame, which is made out of willow branches, which is another big project, just gathering the branches. So the frame is built, the Thule is hung on long ropes, the children carry it over and tie it around the frame, and there's your Thule house. Now in this picture, I think you can see a pump drill, I'm not sure. There it is.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. There, see, that's the kind of drill that was used in this community, as you know, the Pomo community. And what they used it for mainly was to make holes in shells so they could wear them, you know, because their money was little shells that they drill holes in, grind down, drill holes, and make necklaces. So we used them for all kinds of shells, and the kids loved it, and they would have a shell necklace, after they drilled the hole with a pump drill.
Yeah, and I notice here that this particular home is made out of some other material. It looks like redwood bark.
Yes, exactly. That's redwood bark because the coastal Pomo, instead of Thule, they used redwood bark. So we were able to acquire this by going to the different wooden, the different mills, and I believe this one may have come from Willits or maybe around Ukiah, and we would just bring a truck and load it up. This was all gathered by myself, and the redwood I had a lot of help with, but it was a lot of gathering, as you can imagine. But it was so much fun. I really loved this job. This was one of the best jobs I ever had.
It looks like a lot of fun. So
was.
it sounds to me like the Pomo Indians were the Native Indians in the area, and the Native Americans specifically in this area were Pomos, I should say.
Right.
I know that I was raised in Sonoma County, where we have a lot of Miwok reservations,
Right.
Along with Pomo as well.
Uh-huh.
But I was interested in the fact that some of the homes were made out of Thule and others were made out of redwood. So I imagine it depends on where you live and the materials
Exactly.
you have at hand.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing with food. Now, I think it's maybe generally thought that people, the tribes that planted, were probably more advanced than the ones that gathered and hunted. However, if you think about it, it's really not true. If there's a great gathering ground, there's no need for planting. But Lake County is a great gathering ground. It still is. And their basic food was acorns. And what they would do is collect them in beautiful big baskets called burden baskets.
Made
I
out
don't know
of
if you've ever
tules,
seen those. They're
probably.
huge. And they would dry them, and then they would have to soak them because they'd be poison if they weren't leached. And then they would, I guess they shell them and then pound them into a mush. That was their flour. That was
Oh.
their cereal. That was that was like we have flour. They had acorn flour.
Oh, nice. So instead of maize or corn, they
Right,
had
they
acorn.
had acorns because that's what was here.
Right. Okay.
And and it's very high calorie. So I often wonder if there are people living where there's a lot of acorns and going hungry, like maybe in Appalachia. I don't know, but I just wonder. It's a wonderment
Huh?
if they could live on those.
I
know.
suppose if you did it correctly, yeah,
Yeah,
why
it'd
not?
be interesting to find out.
So, are there other Native American tribes in the area? Or you were talking about what the word Pomo means.
Right, and as far as I know, Pomo means people, and the way they would describe each group would be the people who live, say on the other side of the lake, the people who live on Mount Canocti, the people who might live in Upper Lake by the river there. So that would be a different word. It would be, which I don't know, but it would be the people and then the word for the mountain,
Right, okay. I see.
or the people and the word for the creek.
Or whatever it was that they were fishing or hunting in the
Right.
area. Yeah.
And so it could be interpreted by people who came here, like us, as different tribes. But it really wasn't. It was just the same tribe living in a different area.
Yeah. So we're showing a couple other pictures
Okay,
here.
now this is also at this is also at the reservation, and they're eating bananas. And that was another thing. I hate to say it, but the children did not get fed. I mean, I would come there and say, "Did you have breakfast?" No. I mean, they got fed. Of course, they ate. But it wasn't a regular thing. So I would bring food, and then I'd say, when I first got there, don't you have to go back for lunch? Thinking it was like every other community. It's not.
Well, the reservations are their own community and they have their own set of rules, and yeah, it depends. They're
Yeah.
also not the wealthiest communities and often don't have the food. So
Right. Well, that was the whole thing. So we had to bring food in, and it was a pleasure to do it. But now I think things are a lot better because they're using the casino money and it's really being spread around and things are a lot better. When I was at Big Valley Reservation, the living quarters were awful. I mean, really bad. Broken down trailers and families living there, and it was awful. But I think it's a lot better now.
Well, I hope so because there's a lot of casinos in the area, and I'd like to think that a lot of the money was going there. Although I know.
Well, I know in
most of
Robinson
it
it
isn't.
does. It made a huge
Okay,
difference. Yeah.
That's good to know. You were also talking about the Thule dolls.
Yes.
And maybe you can tell us a little bit
Oh,
about
I
their
would love to
significance,
do that.
their history, and you're going to show us how to make some. So
Yes,
that'll
and
be
I'll
fun.
tell you a little bit about it. Sorry about.
That's
my
fine.
YouTube.
Are there museums in the area that we could learn more about this?
Oh, definitely. If you go to the museum in Lake County or the one here in Lower Lake, here they have some beautiful baskets, by the way. So yes, you can learn a lot
Okay,
about it.
that's good to
And
know.
if you know Linda Lake, I believe she's the curator of both museums. I think Linda Lake.
Okay.
So you can
We'll
always
find that out.
contact her. Okay, this is a doll. Believe it or not, is this the right camera?
Yeah.
or- Yeah.
Well, let's show it into this camera here.
Okay.
Yeah.
This is a Thule doll, and it's very abstract, but this is the face right there, and the Thule around it represents a rabbit skin.
Ah.
All the little babies were wrapped up in rabbit skin. Well, when the moms and parents would go out to collect Thule, on their Thule boats, by the way, their boats were made out of Thule, it would take a long time. As you can see from the houses that we showed you, it would take tremendous amounts of Thule, which they would pile on boats and take back to the shore. Well, while they were out, they never left their children alone, so the kids would be with them, getting impatient, and they would make them a doll. And this is the doll they made. And I'm going to show you exactly how the doll was made. And I've done this in many classes, many of our local elementary classes. And the kids can make them. It's very, very easy to make. And they love them. And they immediately recognize that it is a doll.
Well, it's good that they're easy to make because I'm not the
Yeah,
most
little
crafty
kids would
person.
make them. And when I'll say to them, "Why is it a doll? Where's the face?" and they almost always find the face
Mm-hmm.
right there.
You can kind of see that there looks like they're folded arms, maybe wrapped up, and yeah,
Uh-huh.
yeah. Okay, I can see that.
So this
So-
is how we do it.
We take two.
Take two, and you make a T.
Okay.
And you pin, before you fold, you give it a little pinch. And always make sure that the tuli's either wet or new.
Okay.
And this is pretty new. I picked this morning.
We have a lot of tules around here, folks, so you can figure out
Yes.
why everything's made out of tule.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. So here's the beginning of your tule doll. It's just a T, a straight one and one wrapped around it. Then we take another one. I'm wondering I'm facing the camera doing this, is that right?
Yeah, and I think Mark's going to switch over to the other camera.
Oh,
I can
okay.
get a both.
Okay.
Okay, now we put another one right under and we pinch the top one and fold it over and hold it.
Okay.
As I tell the kids, pinch, fold, and hold.
So it's almost like braiding in a way.
In a way,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
And then we have another one like this,
Mm-hmm.
see? And we take another piece right under it.
So
know,
you're going
people
to turn
can- I'm
into
not sure if
this
they can
camera right here.
It's that one,
Yeah.
okay. Okay, we put that right under and we pinch, fold. We pinch it so it doesn't crack. see?
Right, because it's very brittle when it's
It
dry.
can be, yeah. And pinch, fold, and hold. It's hard for me to do it without looking at it.
So it's backwards for you right now.
Yeah, I'm doing it backwards. But anyway,
I think we're getting the idea.
you're getting the idea. And then this one, and you can keep going. I mean, you can make them as long as you want them. You can just keep going and going.
And then
Oh, and another thing I must mention about this doll, though, it's said to be the first doll ever made in the history of man.
wow, and how and
And
that,
the way, yeah, I wouldn't have believed it. I heard it.
Uh-huh.
And I wouldn't have just accepted it blindly. But there's a very famous archaeologist who lives here. His name is John Parker. He kind of grew up here, or at least he came here in the summers, and then he eventually started to live here. And he's well educated, you know, PhDs and everything. And he goes and he makes sure when they're breaking soil to build something, they call him to make sure there was no Indian reservation or relics that they're going to be disturbing. He's the one they call.
Oh, okay.
And I said to him, "Is this the oldest doll ever made?" He said, "Yes." So
Oh, that's fascinating.
the first doll, it's the first doll.
Wow.
Isn't that fun? It's the first doll.
Well, it's very creative.
It is.
And it's amazing what they've made out of tules. I know that they made boats. I've seen pictures of the boats they've made.
Oh,
They look very
yes.
canoeish and very, I think, very artistic.
Very. And
Um,
so useful.
Yeah. So they make nets, baskets, homes,
Oh,
everything.
yes. And traps for animals and all kinds of
I guess
things.
we're
This
very
is-
resourceful as individuals.
Yeah. So, and then you just do another one under that one.
Uh-huh.
I wish I could do it and see it, but I can't.
I think you're doing a great job.
Okay, thanks. So anyway, it's a matter of pinching, folding, and holding.
And then
Now, when
adding
you're
one.
done,
Mhm.
they would take a piece of tule and tie it around. However, they had a better way of doing it, see. So what I do is I use some of this raffia, and let me just
Which
cut.
could be tulle.
Which
that's
could
been
be, or
dried
you
and-
know what they used and made wonderful cord out of. I should have brought some cattail leaves, and I
Oh.
can demonstrate how they made their string too, if you want.
We have a lot of cattails and tules.
Yes,
Well,
we do.
live in the
That's
lake.
and they used it.
We live in Clear Lake, and Clear Lake is the largest natural lake in the country.
That maybe the world. We don't know.
Could be. It's one
There's
of the
one
oldest.
that's giving us a little competition rather, in I think Africa. I'm not sure.
It is one of the oldest lakes. They've
That's right.
proven
and
that.
Right, and the oldest arrowhead have been found at Borax Lake.
Right here. Okay.
Yes.
Nice to know.
Yes. So I'm going to just clip this, but let me pick up the one I did earlier so that you can see how.
You know, for a rush job, that's really very good.
Oh, thank you. See, this is the way they're supposed to look.
Okay, and you Yeah, perfect. That's
Okay.
great. That's
Now, if you'd like, if we have a little time, you talked about, what they used to tie with.
great. Hmm.
I'm going to demonstrate. Now, make believe these are cattail leaves, okay?
We will. We'll make believe they're cattail
Okay.
leaves.
Thank you. And you just make like this, double it up.
Hmm.
And then you give one side a twist. I twist it twice, and then you cross it over, and you twist the other side twice. I'm just going to keep doing this. I'll tell you why. When I'm finished, it's going to look just like rope, and you'll be so impressed because it looks like a piece of rope. So you can imagine now, they need a lot of rope for those tule houses.
And I'm thinking they had to have very tough hands to be doing this all day long.
Yes,
You know?
yes.
Well, the fishing and the hunting, which is basically what we have here, is fishing and hunting, and we have farms.
Right.
So I imagine the Native Americans back in the day, this is
Uh-huh.
what they did.
Exactly.
A lot of hard work, but
Yes.
very strong
But
material.
don't forget, they had time. This is what they did.
Sure.
This was their work.
Sure, this was their world.
They didn't
really.
have to go 8 hours and work in a whatever, an office or whatever.
They worked very hard. I can imagine
But
building
this
boats
is
is hard work.
now
That is looking very strong.
this is, yeah, it is. This is one rope, if you can look closely.
Let's see.
See.
Let me put this in the camera right here so we can
Okay.
see. And maybe Mark can zoom in on this a little bit.
Yeah,
Oops,
that would be
I'm going
great.
the wrong way. There we are. So this is very strong. This is
Yeah.
only two pieces.
It's pretty strong.
Yeah.
And they used other materials. This is just one of the materials that they used. And another thing I just wanted to stress about the frame, I just want to stress the frame of the Thule houses. We had to cut very, very long branches of willow.
Mm-hmm.
And the willow doesn't necessarily grow where the Thule grows. Sometimes it does, but not always. So they had to kind of maneuver it, these
Mm-hmm.
big poles back to where the Thule was, which was at the lake.
Mhm.
So a lot of that was a lot of hard work.
It sounds
also.
like it. You also mentioned shells, which aren't around here because we're inland.
Right.
And I'm imagining the shells being, I think you told me they were money, they were considered money.
Yes.
And so we're about, how far are we from the coast? We're quite a walk.
Quite a ways. And the way they walked wasn't, they didn't walk in a place where they have to go up and down, up and down, but they go to the very top ridge, and they'd walk the ridge
Oh.
from here to the ocean.
Okay.
And it's interesting because the Pomos still go to the ocean, and they still want to bring back shells. Gorgeous album. If you've seen modern Pomo jewelry, it just knocks your eyes out. It is so beautiful. Oh my God. And the girls make it, and I've seen them wearing it. Oh, it's so beautiful. You just want one like it. So, anyway, they still go and they bring back shells, abalone especially, they love, and they bring back seaweed, which they cook, they fry it. Now they go in vans. And they go with music blasting. And they still bring back the same thing.
Sure. Why not?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and it just goes to show that when you have to work hard for something, like walking 80 miles to the coast and
Right.
finding shells and bringing
Uh-huh.
them back, they do become worth quite a bit. The
Right.
value goes up with all that hard work. As
Exactly.
I imagine anything does when it comes from out of the area. You're working
Uh-huh.
harder for it, so it's more
Right.
valuable.
Exactly.
But this was wonderful, and I loved the dolls. The dolls are very cute, and
Thank
knowing
you.
that they're the oldest dolls.
Yeah, that's
Thank you
your job.
very much. I just think that's a fascinating piece of history.
Thank you. I'm
Yeah.
glad you like it. I'm really glad you like it.
So, I'm really happy to have you here today, Eugenie. Thank you for sharing all of
Oh,
this
it's
with
my
us
pleasure.
and all the history of the Native Americans in the area. There's a lot of Native Americans in the area, and I'm hoping that the casinos are helping because I know in some cases they don't, and that's very disappointing.
It is disappointing when they don't. When you still see people living in horrible conditions and the casino right there.
Making huge
we
amounts of
assume
money.
Making huge amount of money. We assume they are. It does seem very sad.
Yeah.
So let's hope that things change. And if you're listening and you have anything to do with making that change,
Yeah.
please do it.
Well, I know that this last Saturday there was a forgiveness ceremony at Bloody Island
Yes.
here, where there was a massacre,
Yeah.
and it's an interesting ceremony with a long history, and the forgiveness ceremony is a beautiful idea. I mean, the fact that we can forgive people for something so horrible is an amazing thing, and it shows the strength of people and how they can survive and forgive. And that's a huge part of making the world a better place. Looking at history, appreciating it, forgiving people for the mistakes they made and their ignorance, and moving forward. So what we learned today was a big part of that, along with Radio Jail, which is a great idea. If you know someone that has the ability to start a radio jail in your local jail, it would really help the inmates tremendously to be able to hear their name, know people will care, know people are thinking about them. So it's a great idea, and I think that you're a wonderful person for doing it, and I'm very happy to have you on the show today to tell us about it.
Thank you.
Next week I'm going to be having Helen Turley and Norb Yates, and they will be telling us about their upcoming class on June 1st, which has to do with the 5 agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz and the Enneagrams that they combine in that class. So that'll be interesting as well. Every Monday night at 7 o'clock, I hold a meditation class at a Positive Light Meditation Center in Kelseyville. If you're interested in joining us for that, there's no cost. We are a nonprofit. We work on donations, so whatever you can comfortably afford is welcome. The music that you heard at the beginning and at the end of today's show is by my friend Sam Houston from his CD Beyond the Crescent Moon. Beautiful music, wonderful artist. Very happy to share that with you. So are there any last words that you'd like to share with us, Eugenie, while you're here? We have a few more minutes.
I would like very much to hear from the audience here. And if you do have anyone in jail and weren't aware that there's a number you can call, 263-3435, every Sunday from 7 to 8 p.m., the person in jail will hear your voice, and they'll be so happy. And also, if there's anyone out there that has any influence at all on other jails and would like to bring up this idea, it's really easy to implement. I mean, you don't need any talent. You just have to have radios in the jail and somebody at your community radio station, or maybe even another radio station. It doesn't really have to be community.
You can volunteer yourself to go into
Right, exactly.
their station and do this yourself, which is what you did, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I think that's so important. If you could possibly spread it out, spread Radio Jail into more jails and prisons, I appreciate, and so would everybody else.
Well, I think it's a wonderful project, something that definitely helps anybody in jail. And people in jail need to be given self-respect, and they
Right,
need to be
the community has
respected.
to do that.
Sure,
too.
and knowing that you're being thought about is a big
Yes,
part of that.
Exactly. And exposing them to the community. And all of the people out there, let me ask you, please, if you do meet people, or if you know of someone who's applying for a job, is applying for a job with you, and they've been in jail, please give them a chance.
Yeah.
Please accept them.
Help them turn their lives around by giving them a
Right.
chance. And that's all we ever ask for, is another chance. And I think we've all run into the times in our lives when something's been difficult and people will tell us, well, don't give up, keep going. It's very difficult to do when someone's shutting the door on you and not giving you that chance.
Exactly.
So that's a really good point. Thank you, Eugenie, for bringing that up. Because
Thank
people
you.
do deserve second chances,
Right.
and sometimes third and fourth chances.
Exactly.
But we don't give up on each other. And in order to make the world a better place, it starts with us taking those steps to bring some positive energy into somebody's life. So thank you for joining us today. We truly enjoyed this show. I had a wonderful
Thank you.
time. And we will see you next Monday at 3 o'clock Pacific Daylight Time with our guests, Helen and Norb. Thank you again for joining us, and have a beautiful week. Take care of each other and yourselves.